The lore and characters of the Darksiders franchise are pretty epic, but I don't feel the same way about the plots of the individual games. A lot of story time in Darksiders is spent doing errands for other characters before they will help you, and this seems beneath the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. It's worst in the most recent game, Darksiders Genesis, which keeps the characters on a hamster wheel almost from beginning to end, without those characters or the situation they're in developing in any impactful way. The structure of this game may be a limiting factor here. Darksiders Genesis is a linear sequence of missions where most of the story has to occur before or after the gameplay sections. But there's another game with almost exactly this structure, also set in an epic fantasy world, and it has one of my favourite stories in gaming, and that is Warcraft III. What makes Warcraft III work is that things change. Characters have goals and make progress towards those goals. They make decisions that cause the story to proceed in one direction or another. And the circumstances and the world change as a result of what happens in the playable sections. Let me give you some examples. At the start of Warcraft III, Thrall needs to lead his people to Kalimdor. He's given the instruction to do this by the Prophet, but the path to accomplishing this goal is determined by Thrall's own decisions. He chooses to team up with the trolls, then he chooses to steal the human ships so the orcs can sail away to the new continent. The next playable hero is Arthas. He decides to purge Stratholme instead of listening to his friends. This leads him down the path of vengeance, along which he is ultimately cursed. As a result, the human kingdom of Lordaeron falls to the undead. I think in World of Warcraft the undead still have control of Lordaeron. That's 20 real-world years of storytelling later. Those are some pretty big consequences for Arthas' decisions. To compare, in the first half of Darksiders Genesis, the Horsemen, War and Strife, are sent to the Void by Samael. Then they are told by Samael's associate Volgrim,
"The precious artifact has been stolen from me,"
to find a magical crystal. Then to find the Eye of Scrying. Then he tells them to collect a map. Then he tells them to kill the demon Mammon. It's not really a narrative, it's more of a checklist. War and Strife do what they're told because they don't seem to have any better plan, even though some of these missions actually benefit Volgrim or Samael more than they benefit the actual protagonists of the game. In Warcraft 3, at the halfway point of the story, characters, the world, everything is in a very different state to how it started. In Darksiders Genesis, at the halfway point of the story, we're still in the Void, getting ordered around by Volgrim and Samael. Nothing of substance has changed, and we don't seem to be appreciably closer to the overarching goal of finding Lucifer. This way of telling a story kind of reminds me of a sitcom, where everything has to return to the status quo at the end of each episode. I think we can make some simple changes to the story which would really improve it. For example, the magical artifacts that the Horsemen have to find at the beginning of the game. The decision to find those could have been made by one of the Horsemen, instead of Volgrim. You might expect War, going by his name, to be good at strategy, so have him make the plans about the next course of action, instead of just being told what to do. Also, after we find the character Dis, she could have an ongoing role in the story, instead of just being a storekeeper. Dis is Volgrim's slave, but the Horsemen never free her, so maybe she escapes on her own, she sides with Lucifer, becomes a new thorn in our side. When the Horsemen defeat Mammon, they find a vault full of his gold, and the game takes great pains to explain that they can't use any of it. Well, why not? Have the Horsemen take control of the wealth and use it to their advantage, or just use Mammon's lair as the new base to launch their next mission from. Besides, what are the consequences of killing Mammon? Is there a next in line to his throne? Do his leaderless forces join Lucifer? So now the Horsemen are taking some active steps towards their goal, but shouldn't Lucifer be taking some active steps against the Horsemen? Like actually sending some of his agents to kill them instead of being an absent antagonist in the background for the entire game? And most importantly, this game sets up a reluctant alliance between the Horsemen and Samael. It's a partnership of convenience. It's probably the topic that gets the most lines of dialogue devoted to it in the whole game. Shouldn't there be some conclusion to that, some payoff? The Horsemen should probably at some point say, actually, this deal doesn't work for us anymore, and leave and make an enemy out of Samael. Or Samael should do the same. In some way it should come to a boiling point. They refer to this tense alliance constantly and do nothing with it. It's such a shame when a game has cool lore, cool world building, but it doesn't put the thought or effort into the narrative of the events of the game. And it's especially a shame when it's a game that is as otherwise good as Darksiders Genesis. This game has gorgeous animation, addictive exploration, a clever system for strengthening the characters, and really fun combat. The one thing that lets it down...
That's all the info you're giving us. Go get an artifact. What the hell makes it so important?
It's complicated.
is the plot.